Hello and welcome to the local marketing live stream with myself, Luke Hawley. And today we're going to talk about participants as we continue on our 8-part series around service design or service as theatre. So I've got 3 scenarios for you. Right, the first one is the sole business owner who works for themselves, and when you see any kind of marketing language around people or participants, you assume that's got nothing to do with you. The second scenario is that you do focus in on people when it comes to recruitment, but you really focus in on kind of filling in the skill gaps, right? So you hire based on skills, like, hey, I'm a painter, I need someone else who can paint. You bring them in, you watch them do their thing, and if they can paint, great. If they can't, then you let them go. So you focus in on bringing people in as you need them, but you haven't really got like systems and processes or a defined culture. And then the third scenario is a business that has focused in on the people side from a HR perspective. So you do have a plan for recruitment, you are bringing the right people in, but you haven't really thought about it as it relates to your brand. And you definitely haven't thought about the impact of other customers on your current customer's experience. And here's like a really like simple example to kind of help articulate why this is an area of focus for me. We talk about participants. It's a simple one, right? You go to the movie theater, right, and you walk in. It's a welcoming experience. It's very easy to get your ticket, very easy to get your popcorn. You walk in, you sit into the theater, but then there's someone in the back who's loud, noisy, roughhousing, and that detracts from the overall experience of going to the theater. The role of people is incredibly important with this service experience, and too often when the discussion around people is done, the focus is on staff and frontline staff versus thinking about every single person that's part of the service experience. Hence why today's episode is both cast and crowd. And as we start thinking about what is the right kind of, it's called people strategy or participant strategy, we need to think about it through both those lens of, are we bringing the right people in our organization to do the work, but also are we bringing in the right customers that helps elevate the overall experience for our customers. And like for a recent example for me, and I'm sure you've had this as well, where you jump on like a group coaching call, there's always, and whether it's like online or in person, this happens quite a lot, where like you go on and do the online coaching call, and there's always that one person who like shows up late, who is still working instead of being present in the meeting, makes the conversation about themselves, and can be a little bit patronizing or sometimes even assaulting the other people as well, in their kind of version of like interacting with others. And because of that type of personality, it can lead to other people deciding, I don't know if I want to continue joining this core or continue doing this thing because I want to avoid that person, right? Because it's like, that's not how I want to start the day, or that's not what I want to do for lunch, or, that's not what I want to do for my Pilates session, like whatever it might be, like that interaction has a real effect. So I really will spend a bit of time talking about it. I'm going to give away upfront, the answer a little bit here on this one. And you sit behind me, right? Oh, here we go. Culture is hard, right? And I'm going to use this as a line from Gavin Keeley. So thank you in terms of that book. But I think that one of the most consequential decisions any business owner, entrepreneur makes is, what is the organization's purpose, their vision, their mission, and their values, right? Which is then defined as the organization's culture. That culture becomes their brand, right? If you think of brand, and there's a lot of different definitions for it, but what people say about you when you're not in the room, and that's both as the individual and the organization. And in that, culture and brand kind of highlights the role of people in both of those things. And if we don't have both a recruitment process, right? So what is our strategy for recruiting, not just people, but customers? So we know that we're, cultural fit first, skill second. And that's the same for customers too. Like, it is okay to say no to a customer if they're not value aligned or a good fit for your organization, because they can impact the experience of others more so than you're probably aware of. So that's the first, is like, getting that piece well defined. And there's plenty of good operators on the coast that can help you with that, and happy to make those introductions for those interested, including Dave Keeley as well. Hold on, we bring this in the shot, right? As I talk about, purpose, values, mission, and values through that lens, but also how we educating, how both our staff, when it comes to onboarding materials, our systems and processes, but also how we onboarding and educating our customers. What friction points are we creating? What level of complexity are we doing? Like, do they feel like they understand their role in this kind of co-creation of value, right? The role of the service. And as we spoke about last week, we can't deliver the service without the help, right? It's them, it's their asset. They're coming to us, we're going to them. There is this kind of combined effort, right? The shared effort. And in order to get the results that we expect, they need to have stakes in the game. They need to so they need to be invested, but they also need to understand their role so they can contribute effectively. And that fitness is really important. So I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about that today. A couple of things to think about. We'll link it back to the service blueprint workbook that we shared last week, so you can start to build this out and really reflect on what this means for you as a business owner. And I can promise you, even if you're working on your own, this matters, because, like I said, brand, right, culture, how you show up, your expertise, how you communicate, the people you work with, all those things come into play, as well as the types of customers you work with actually contributes to your reputation within the area, right? So the types of business groups you go to, the networking events, the people that you associate with, all those things have an impact on you as an individual. So very important to really think about that. Alrighty, so I'm going to turn on the live chat. So we've got it. So let me just connect that. Cool. So we're live now. So if anyone does have questions through the live chat or through social media, feel free to share that. I'm just going to jump in and share my screen. Cool. And as always, if you're looking for the resources for today, just go to buylocalsunshinecoast.com.au. Resources, the local marketing live stream articles. This is where you get access to all episodes. So if you jump into episode 13, obviously the summary will come soon, and the link to the YouTube channel will come soon as well. But you can download the slides in the workbook from today, and of course book a clarity session. So if you do want to spend some time thinking about and working with me and how to execute this within your business and how to implement it, we can do that one-to-one. All right, so let's jump into today's materials. All righty, so I've covered this. All right. So before we go in and start making strategic choices about participants, right? So both our staff and our customers, it's a good reminder on the big three. So we need these things in order to make any strategic choices about service design. So we need to be really clear on our positioning strategy, right? Or what is it we want to be known for in the market? Culture, brand, all those are part of us sort of defining this, what we call our positioning strategy, of like clearly articulating, this is why you choose us. This is why we exist. This is what it is we want to be known for in the market. Back to that, comment I made earlier about what people say about you when you're in the room, right? Your target market, right? You need to be really clear on who your target market is, who your ideal customer is. In episode 10, we shared a lot of advice on how to define who that is. And often becomes a mirror of ourselves, right? Before, we discovered this thing that has made a big impact on our lives. So often our customers have shared life experiences. They share a lot of our values and shared intention. In other words, they're looking to get the same, like they're really invested in getting the same value, return on investment, changing from the current state to their ideal state. So there's an intention there. So we want to make sure our target market is well defined, because they'll also impact the people we bring in and the customers that we choose. And obviously insight from our marketing environment. So very important as we're making strategic choices about service design, that we are aware of what's happening around us. So we know what's happening in our industry. We know what's happening locally, right? What are some stuff happening locally that might be relevant to us? What our competitors are doing. We go to conferences, expos, we read the newsletters that come out related to our industry association. We're doing these things so we stay informed. So as we're making these choices, we can be really clear, right? Alrighty, so moving into, and I kind of highlight this already. Let's jump in here. So this stat's really important, right? And this is from last year. 13.3% of Australian small businesses, and that's it, that increased headcount, compared to 36% is the average across Asia Pacific. So most Australian businesses, small businesses, are not increasing the staff count, right? Now, why is that? Right? It's not that, part of it is we can't afford anyone, right? So that's part of what's limiting the growth of organizations. And there is some constraint around finding the right people, right? So these are some of the challenges that we see, and a lot of organizations, particularly small businesses, are hesitating to grow their team, to grow their staff. All right. So a reminder, right? All human actors who play a part in service delivery, namely the firm's personnel and other customers, right? Very important. All human actors who play a part in service delivery, namely the firm's personnel and other customers, right? So everyone who's involved in the process or in the service delivery has an influence. And I've shared those examples already. So, 7Ps is often referred to as people. I prefer kind of referring to as participants because I think it's important to think about it, not just staff, but also customers as well, given the impact that customers have. So your cast, thinking services theatre, that's your staff, the crowd, the customers, and of course, even the partial employees, those who come and go within the organization that can have an impact on the experience. And even service providers too, right? Like if you're bringing in a marketing agency, if you're bringing in accountants and bookkeepers, if you're bringing in legal advice, you're bringing in people into the organization that has an impact on how you deliver your service, they're also part of the participants, right? And I also think it's very important on the people you partner with to deliver your service, that there's also that, sharing culture, sharing values, there's a consistency there across all these three, right? It should feel that there's a level of alignment between your staff, your customers, and the people that you partner with to deliver your service, right? And, last week we talked about mapping out your service using blueprinting. And we identified, during that episode too, what we call moments of truth. So these moments where there's the potential for failure, and most common, it's wherever there's an interaction with a human being, right? Because humans, we can have bad days, right? And we can react in the incorrect ways. And if there's no systems and processes in place, we can lose a bit of control of that. So by having these systems and processes in place, well-trained staff, and in an environment that's supportive of that, we can identify what those potential, moments of truth are, and making sure we're the right people in the right place, right? So thinking about same thing, line of visibility, who's on stage, what are people physically seeing, but there's also people, like I talked about already, that are behind the scene or behind the stage that are also making this possible, this service delivery. So if your customer is doing a job for you, right, if they're part of the process, have you trained them, right? So if you're getting them to fill out a form as part of the onboarding, have you provided them with the context, the rationale, and what's required so they can do that correctly? And if you asked them to share an email with documents, have you provided, again, the information required for that? If they're coming in, have you provided them with the on-site signage to let them know where to wait, where to go to get, a drink of water, where the bathrooms are, like the little things in terms of so they can actively participate in this experience in a way that you've designed. I did a consultation earlier this week with a retailer. And one of the things that she picked up is that most people are not navigating through the entire store. So they navigate through the front of the store and go to the checkout, not realizing that there's a second part to the store, because the second part of the store looks like a storage room. So I said, well, one thing that we can do to train your customers is to have signage, right, on the door frame to say, hey, come on in for to discover more treasures, but even floor signage, think of like the yellow brick road type thing, giving like like you see in IKEA, where you're kind of directing people on how to navigate through your store. Those little things can make a big difference. So training is not come do some video training. Not all customers are going to do that. But it can be subtle cues, subtle signage, subtle elements that just helps them being informed, or even as part of your service delivery script from your frontline staff, like the little questions, little bits of advice, or explaining some whys or what good looks like. Directional, think of like the Subway. When you go to Subway, get a sandwich, one, you get the bread, two, you do your meat and salads, and then you get your sauces. Like there's a design that feels like if you're coming in for the first time, you can very quickly be trained on how this service is being delivered, right? So those elements are really, really important, helping to manage how the customers are supposed to act in these spaces. What is good behavior, and then how to model it, right? And yeah, there's money attached to this, right? So 25% of consumer problems in Australia are from poor customer service, right? We all experienced it, right? The frustration often comes because we feel like we haven't been heard, haven't been responded to in a timely manner. We're getting frustrated. Maybe it's something with like Google reviews. Like there's a variety of things that we can respond to. So that's what ends up happening. Yeah, Google reviews is where we get the complaints from, all that type of stuff, right? So it has an impact, right? And we know that profit and growth is related to customer loyalty. Loyalty is a direct result of customer satisfaction, and satisfaction is largely influenced by the value of the services provided to customers, and value is created by satisfied, loyal, and productive employees, right? So hence, the people experience relates to the feeling of satisfaction, to have a good experience. That relates to loyalty. That then relates to profit and growth. That kind of brings it here together as that kind of directional chart. Right, and obviously our margin downstream on how people feel about coming to work, right? So people enjoy coming to your space, enjoy working for you, participating. And as a solopreneur, it might be partnering with contractors. It might be your referral partners. Do they feel comfortable in just giving you a call and having a conversation and kind of exchanging ideas? What is the interactions happening in these business groups? We are heavily influenced by the people we surround ourselves with. So all those things have a big impact because you're more likely to get the referral or be brought into a big opportunity, and people enjoy working with you, right? If there's a value alignment from them, right? So very, very important. So internal quality is measured by the feelings an employees have toward their jobs, colleagues, and companies. So we know this, right? And I think this is an interesting stat too, that I remember we've shared in a previous local networking nights, but customers who gave Xerox in this example, a 5 out of 5, were 6 times more likely to repurchase than those who gave a 4, right? So I'm sure you get this already, the importance of that. It was a cracking experience. I felt heard. I felt listened. It was delivered the way that I expected. You're more likely to go back, right? The good vibes, right, is what brings people back. Cool. All right. I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself here a little bit here. And we do know, right? So I talked about that businesses haven't grown, people haven't unemploying. So we talked about this already. So it's really important to really think about the cast. So let's really get into how do we actually execute this, right? How do we move forward? So I want to share an example from what I did with my time Procter & Gamble. And it was I'll share this actually throughout all 8 episodes. As sort of examples of implementing these 7 Ps within, a large brand in part of our partnership with pharmacy. With what we identified for, this is Clear Blue, the brand that I was working on. So I think pregnancy tests and ovulation tests. What we identified is most women were buying, obviously, pregnancy tests in pharmacy and grocery stores. And what we found is most pharmacists, one, the brand didn't look good in stores, right? So the shelf wasn't looking great. But also pharmacists weren't aware of why Clear Blue was at a premium compared to the other products, right? So there was this education gap from staff to product. And that information wasn't clearly presented on the shelf. So a big part of the strategy when we identified that, okay, well, how do we show up as number 1 on shelf was kind of the intention. But also, how do we make sure that the pharmacists themselves understand, what it is that Clear Blue is providing that justifies its premium, that gives confidence in those that are and women who are using our products. So, in partnership with the team in Europe who had gone through this process before, we created these detailers. So very kind of like demo boxes, right? Where we had like a tablet thing as well that the merchandisers could use. And we broke it up into multiple steps. So every time that the merchandiser would go in or the sales rep would visit the pharmacist, We would provide them with a little bit of education and have a live demo. So one that felt interactive, interesting, and we taught the merchandisers how to kind of create a bit of theater around it as well. But the whole intention was so pharmacists felt very, very comfortable understanding what the product does, why is it at a premium, from the message, like from the digital and the quality tests and all these sort of things that we were able to kind of provide that made them feel much more comfortable in recommending the product. And that was part of it, right? So, really thinking about it, and that's a lot of people, right? So that's thinking about the materials to help provide our merchandisers, and then train the different pharmacist staff. So the pharmacist staff can then talk to their customers about this product when these questions come up. So multiple in terms of the cast involved in delivering this, which is really a retail service experience, right? So you come in and you're getting the right advice with some good quality information, and really thinking about how we do that in a fun, interactive way. Because obviously, if we ask them to do a Zoom call, they're not going to jump on to do that. But in person, a little demo kit, a little bit of fun, just a couple of minutes, and just do that consistently over several months. So we put that together as a full-year plan, and that had obviously a big impact on the brand and the category. So the idea is that we stopped being product pushers on Deal and became category captains selling on insight, right? And that's core to what made Procter & Gamble has made Procter & Gamble so successful in the partnerships with retailers, is the responsibility of being a category captain, and that is the role of insight. So we're educating and providing good information so the retail owner, the pharmacist, whoever it might be, can make better choices about what's the right products to range and how to range it on the shelves. And that's really important, right? And you can think about that for yourself as well. I always think that there's a benefit to showing up as a consultant that's there to help, guide, and support the right decision making versus like just how do I get the sale, right? I think it's important to come as help, and the value will come in return for that. A few different examples here. I'll just hold on this so you can kind of check it out as it relates to like trade, the cafe, and broker. But you can start to see how this comes together as you start to think about the role of people, the role of customers, and you might need to have interventions on if we identify that an employee is not a right fit, how do we X them out? And same with customers, right, or the crowd. Like, what do we do if a customer is noisy, loud, and having an impact in the overall experience? What are the strategies that we can deploy? If you're a coach running online coaching programs, in-person coaching programs, you might need to exit customers out in order to protect your current base, because you might find you're starting to create a churn rate, and your perception might be, I've got to keep my loyal customers that keep showing up. But if you discover that it's actually your loyal customers that are having a negative impact on your new customers, we're like, oh man, the vibe and energy here is not right for me. And we're like, actually, in order for me to grow, I might need to end the professional relationship with the toxic type characters that might be there. And same with the service providers. If you're not, it doesn't feel value aligned, if you don't feel like you're getting the right advice, if it's having an impact on your ability to deliver your service, that can come from marketing, website hosting, from bookkeeping, accounting, legal services, you name it, even your own coach. These people who are also part of the process, again, it should feel value aligned and have real strategies on how to train them up, how to evaluate, and exit them if you need to. So you've already decided who else is in the room. You just did not know you were casting, right? It's not just employees, it's the crowd as well. So a few things to reflect on as a result of this. And also we've got it in the workbook as well that you can download. So we go here, right? Plenty of space for you to kind of think about your cast, so your employees, reflect on that, your crowd, your customers, what's the impact that they can have on other customer experience from, as I said, whether it's group calls, the reception area, curated venues like workshops and networking events and stuff like that. Whatever it might be, whenever a customer is potentially interacting with another customer, what map them out and think about that experience. And are you providing them guidance and training to get the most out of that? And same with those who are stepping in and supporting you in some way as partial employees or service providers as well. Now, if you need help with this, as always, feel free to book the marketing clarity session with us. Obviously, you've got it on this page. I provide links throughout these materials, so feel free to do that. Let me just stop sharing now, and I'll just check if there's questions come through. Cool. Home, family, music. Great. Thank you. Can't listen now, but checking out later. Great. Thanks. So I hope you found that helpful. Plenty of stuff to reflect on and think about. Your people, right? Yes, culture is hard, right? So if you do need just the connections to kind of help you with that process, happy to do that. But yeah, really do think about like, how's it you're showing up? What are you presenting? And is that reflected in all three? Your people, your customers, and those who are helping you, your service providers. So thank you as always for joining us, and I'll see you same time next week.